What is up? What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the stream with those Colorado Rockies. We are entering our fourth season of this rebuild, and I think we have a squad that could be a World Series contender this season. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of our offseason moves, give you guys just some heads up about where the squad is at this point, some of our strengths, some of our weaknesses, and we'll go from there. So first thing I want to talk about, Corbin Burnes. We said we were going to give him a massive extension, and we did. We signed him to a 7-year contract, which will take him through his age 36 season. Kind of like that. I think that he's got some very good pitching numbers. Obviously got that A potential, so he's got a little bit more growth. I think 2 more overall left for growth there. Last 2 seasons haven't been phenomenal, but I'm not scared. His FIPs have been great, so I'm not going to be too worried at all about that. And then the next guy we extended was Tariq Skubal. I was so impressed with how he pitched in his first season for us as a Colorado Rocky that I said, you know what, I'm not going to waste any time. I want to keep you around a while. I think he's got 87 potential, so he's got a little bit growth left. He's only 27 years old. And I said, you know what, screw the service time, screw the arbitration. I'm just going to go straight for it, and I did. I got aggressive. Good left-handed pitcher, hard to find in the major leagues. So I signed him to a 5-year deal, which will take him through his age 32 season, which may give us a chance to re-sign him, or we may decide to move on with some of our young guys that we are shuttling through the system. And then the last guy that we extended was Jazz Chisholm, just a young stud with 80, 89 potential. Really had such a phenomenal year for us once he came over, and actually phenomenal numbers on the season as well. We gave him a, what is that? 8-year contract. We gave him an 8-year contract to take him through his age 34 season. I have a lot of faith in him. I think that across the board, he's got good build already, and he should still continue to grow. Another 6 overall, hopefully. So I'm very excited to have him around for a long time. So, going into free agency, one of the biggest things I wanted to kind of focus on was my bullpen. I felt that we could use a little bit more in our bullpen. Unfortunately, Robert Stevenson was not available. The Mets did end up re-signing him to a long-term deal. So there was a couple of guys out there, and one of them was being Alex Reyes, who is 29 years old. Now, he wanted $17 million per year, and I didn't want to pay that for a closer. So I tried to get him for about 12 and a half, but he quickly said, nah, I'm good. I don't want that. So we shifted our focus to Emilio Pagan, and he, unfortunately, we offered him what he was looking for, just he was really interested in going to some other teams instead. However, in uh, we did end up making a trade with the Oakland Athletics to get Lou Trevino, closing pitcher, who's got some pretty good numbers. Love his attributes as a whole, and he still has 2 years left on a very cheap contract, so he's a perfect fit for us right now because we spent a lot of money in the offseason on somebody specific, and I'll tell you guys who that is in a minute. So we needed some cheap guys, especially 85 overall closer with $2.5 million contract for 2 more seasons. You gotta love that. And in that trade, we sent a couple of guys who I didn't really think we needed anymore, or I was very willing to move. So we sent Gabriel Moreno, who I had talked about, and we signed a catcher in free agency. So I didn't see a need to keep Gabriel Moreno around. I wasn't going to carry 3 catchers. And he was out of options, so I figured I'd get some value for him. The Athletics really needed a catcher for their future and right now as well, so Moreno fit that. I also sent them our first round, I think it was our first ever draft pick in this franchise, the third baseman, Dave Perry, and he was a B potential, like I think 70 overall as well, so that was a nice little get for them. They just lost Matt Chapman in free agency, so that'll be nice for them. And then we also sent them Austin Martin, the center fielder who we got from the Toronto Blue Jays. He had not been hitting for a very good average for us, but he had been hitting for pretty good power, still had like 84, 83 potential, so it took quite a bit to get Lou Trevino, but I'm happy with it, especially mainly because that contract is so great for such a good player. So the catcher that we signed was Mike Zunino, who is not going to hit for a great average. You see those contact numbers and the vision are awful, but he's going to take his walks with a decent discipline and hit for a lot of power. So I'm going to give him the edge at starter for right now to start the season. And then he will also be competing with Mejia year long. So whoever's playing better, hotter at a certain time, probably going to get the start. Zunino is a little bit better of a defensive catcher, so he definitely gets the nod early on, and tie breaks are probably going to go to him because of that. Zunino was not the first catcher that I targeted. I was also looking at Mitch Garver, the former Twins catcher, who's a very good offensive catcher with decent defensive numbers as well. But he got stolen from us, unfortunately. We gave him what he was looking for, but he wasn't quite interested in signing with us. Then the last guy I was interested in signing was Rhys Hoskins, had made it into the free agent market from the Philadelphia Phillies. I thought, you know what, we kind of need some star power in this team. I'm looking for a guy. I'm like, Rhys Hoskins, I can play him at first base and then maybe rotate Michael Chavez and Patrick Wisdom at third base. I know both of them had great seasons last year, but their overalls aren't phenomenal. And man, I mean, to get Rhys Hoskins would be such a great victory. Big bat in the middle of our lineup, and we were on top of his board for a little bit, but he eventually decided to sign elsewhere. So I said, you know what, I'm going to get aggressive. There's a big name out here. He's got a qualifying offer. I'm going to sacrifice our first round pick, and I'm going to go get us Rafael Devers, who is sitting out there and had him just coming off an MVP season. If you remember in the last episode, he stole it from Xander Bogaerts. Actually, I think each of the last two seasons he stole it from Xander Bogaerts. So he was looking for $31 million a year, which is the maximum that you can offer in this game. And I was a little bit worried about our cap situation because we were rapidly approaching it. And I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to try to go down to $28 million and give him a 10-year contract. Sign him through his age 37 season, which should take him to basically the end of his career. Because of that A potential, 93 overall, I'm not too worried about regression because it won't hit until about age 35 or so. He'll still be able to maintain some of his abilities. So we gave it to him, and we had some competition right up there until the end, but Rafael Devers eventually chose us. I think he wants to play in course. I think he wants to win a championship, and he's got confidence in us. We really overperformed last year, exceeded expectations, so he's excited to play for us. And then also, I ended up picking up Brad Miller as another piece for our lineup, mainly a lefty bench bat utility option. This is going to push a couple guys like Isan Diaz to the minors, and actually ended up making me trade another guy, which is a trade I will get into in a second. So I like the left-handed bat, should be able to move around quite a bit. Nice little piece. We only signed him to a one-year contract. He's got that B potential, so he might even grow an overall. We'll see. So there was a couple guys in free agency that were available in the pitching department for starting pitching, like Julio Urias at age 27 with A potential, and Tyler Glasnow. And I looked at them and I go, you know what? I would love to have these guys on my team, but honestly, I'm pretty happy with how our rotation currently looks with Burns, Skubal, Gray, Javier, and Balazovic, and we still got Green, JT Ginn, and all these other B potential guys riding up behind, and I don't really want to take up rotation spots. I don't want to shell out the kind of money it's going to take to sign those guys with when we got all of these good players here right now that I'm pretty satisfied with. And so I decided to use that money to go after Rafael Devers instead. So another trade that I made in the offseason was made because I was realizing after picking up Lou Trevino and picking up Brad Miller, I had a couple guys on my roster that I didn't really have a use for. So one of them was Peter Lambert, who I had converted to a relief pitcher full-time. And he was only 73 overall, 73 potential. He's not going to probably pitch in this bullpen. He would have had a tough time breaking camp as being in our bullpen, and he was out of options. So I was like, I got to trade him because I don't want to lose him for nothing on the waiver wire. And then because I had signed Brad Miller, you'll notice that Colton Welker is no longer here. Now, Colton Welker, he did pretty well as a lefty platoon, right-hand hitter hitting against lefties in the platoon for Patrick Wisdom. But because I signed Rafael Devers, Patrick Wisdom and Michael Chavez are now going to be in a platoon with one another, and Brad Miller is going to be my main bench bat. So Colton Welker, don't really have too much of a need for him anymore. And again, I got guys behind him like Ronnie Mauricio, who's almost MLB ready, Julio Carreras, and Reese Hines, all guys who I kind of like. So I really didn't have any qualms moving him. And then the final guy I had to send to get it over the top was Jamison Hanna. Now, Jamison Hanna, nice left-handed bat, hadn't gotten any major league playing time yet. But to be honest, right now, I'm pretty happy with how Corey Ray has been playing. So he'll probably be my mainstay fourth outfielder for the time being, which kind of leaves Jamison Hanna without a role on the team. And he can go and he can perform for a team right now. And I traded them to the Reds. So switch over to the Reds for a second. So you see Jamison Hanna here. He's actually on the opening day roster, so good for him. I'm glad he's getting his opportunity. And then Colton Welker, he is also on, well, he's on the IL right now, but he's going to probably get his shot there as well. And then let's see, did Peter Lambert broke camp with them as well. They needed some bullpen help. He's only 25 years old, so I think that this is a good opportunity for Peter Lambert and those three guys to get some playing time. And the guy I got in return was actually an overpay based off of how the game grades trades, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't really screwing them over. I got this 20-year-old, 60 overall, B potential first baseman. Now, you guys know that I've been very disappointed with how Michael Toglia has developed, and I don't really have... I got Tom Felsch last year, who is, I think, a 78, 79 potential, so he's not a bad option. I'm interested to see what he can do, but Lorenzo Serrano, take this, look at this, 88 potential. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to get this guy from the Reds, I got to give them 3 MLB-ready players right now. And then it would kind of make sense for them to deal him to me. And that's what they did. So that is basically recapping everything that we did in our off season. Basically from there, we just kind of filled the roster. So I think I did a much better job of kind of balancing out this roster. I don't have a bunch of guys who are AAA players with their overalls down in AA. I think that we have a lot better balance. Picked up a couple of young guys who are in the 50s who I can feel comfortable leaving at the single A roster. And yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with how things have panned out. So I want to show you guys here that we are now the 12th ranked team in the majors, 12th in contact, 1st in power, and 12th in pitching. So I'm pretty happy about that. Our defense, not so good. We are last in the majors, but I'm going to try to outpitch and outgun everybody and then just make do with the defense I get. So one thing I didn't realize when I started this franchise that was going to make it so difficult was playing in the NL West. It was something that I'm kind of glad to have that challenge, but at the same time, like, oh my, it's going to be difficult. So you see that we are ranked 12th. Well, you see the Dodgers are first in basically everything. The Padres are third, and the Giants are 8th. So it's going to be very hard to, I think, get a championship from this team just because of how good the NL West is. So much young talent, so much just all-around talent. So we're going to have to work our butts off, probably get aggressive at the trade deadlines to fill out the weaknesses in our roster. So just going to recap today by showing you guys our lineups and rotations. So Brandon Nimmo is going to stay in that leadoff spot. Brendan Rodgers, Rafael Devers comes in to take the 3 hole, so that's going to move Trevor Larnach down to the 5 hole. Not too disappointed. I think that with Wisdom behind him and Soler ahead of him, he's still going to be able to perform quite well, and I think he will fit pretty well in that 5 hole. I'm very pleased to see the developments he's made with his power abilities since we acquired him. I know I've been training that nonstop, and it's really paid off. I mean, he hit 31 home runs last year, so damn, I mean, that's fantastic. Behind him, Patrick Wisdom is going to be hitting against righties because he's got the better numbers against righties than Michael Chavez does. Specifically, Chavez a little bit better with the contact department, but you see that power for Wisdom is off the charts. So, and then we have Brad Miller, who has a possibility as well. So these three guys, Chavez, Miller, and Wisdom, will all probably be in the discussion for hitting against righties at that first base position, but Wisdom gets the early nod right now because of how well he played last year. And then we are capping off the lineup with Velade, Zunino, and Chisholm. Against lefties, the only difference is Michael Chavez, which really good numbers against lefties, will be hitting in the 6-hole at first base. So on the bench, we talked about Chavez and Miller a little bit. We also briefly discussed Corey Ray, so he's going to be one of the lefty bats along with Brad Miller coming off of the bench. A little bit different profiles. Ray a little bit more contact, Miller a little bit more power against the righties, so that's kind of nice in certain decision situations. Plus Corey Ray with a little bit of speed. And then Francisco Mejia, our backup catcher. And yeah, that's it. So for our pitching rotation, we are going to roll with Corbin Burns as our ace, Skubal as our 2, Gray 3, Javier 4, and Balazovic, who actually had a killer spring training to really, I think his ERA was just north of 2, so really kind of solidifying himself as a solid rotation piece. Nick Neidert, we switched to relief full time, so he got a little bit of bump in his attributes because of that. The way that I do when I switch players from starter to reliever or reliever to starter, what I do is I adjust the stamina to a level that seems reasonable. 40 is really kind of my default number for anybody who I want to be like a long relief type pitcher. And then what I do is I go and I edit the per 9 numbers, the hits, strikeouts, base on balls, and home runs to get the player to be the same overall that he was at the other position. So Nick Neidert was a 76 overall starting pitcher. When I moved him to relief pitcher and edited his stamina, I think he was 69 overall. So I gave him a 7-point bump to all of his per 9 numbers. Because that actually kind of follows with what happens when guys go from starting to relieving. They usually pick up bumps in all those per 9 numbers because they're not throwing for as long. And then vice versa, when people go from relievers to starters, you'll see decreases in those numbers. Yohan Ibar did not have a great spring training, but I am out of options, so he is going to sink or swim with us here in the majors. Wanderson Charles, as you know, would be in our bullpen with Justin Lawrence. Looking for him to bounce back after a little bit of a rough year last year. Tony Losey pitched very well in spring training, so he won a job in the bullpen. So we're hoping he catches fire early on and really starts to do well with that B potential. Lucas Gilbreth, as you know, been one of a pretty good left-handed pitcher for us for the last couple seasons. And then Eniel De Los Santos in the setup role, and of course Lou Trevino in that closing role. So a couple guys I want to keep an eye on this season because the bullpen is still pretty much up in the air. If these guys in the middle here, and Ibar as well, struggle, and Neidert, if they struggle, some guys who might be able to come up and take the role, Hunter Green, we might try to throw into the bullpen a little bit. He didn't have a great year last year, but hoping he gets a fast start in AAA to get some potential, some overall bumps. Other guys I want to keep an eye on, Yency Almonte, Jose Mujica. Almonte did not pitch well in camp, but he has this weird way of pitching really bad and then pitching really good. He's very hard to figure out. Mujica had a very good camp, so keep an eye on him. Sam Weatherly was a left-handed starting pitcher for us. I switched him to the bullpen because I'm looking for some type of a lefty to help me out maybe in the near future. He's got 78 potential, which I did not realize, so he might turn into a left-handed reliever for our bullpen. And then Humberto Mejia, I am pitching out of the bullpen because all those guys in the rotation here, I want to make sure they get starter work, and I want to see what Mejia can do in the bullpen. He might find himself into the majors if he pitches well in the bullpen as well. And then Ryan Castellani, always lurking after a couple good seasons in the long relief role. Nothing down at Double A, and then just looking at guys in Triple A to keep an eye on for call-ups. Zach Veen is now on the 40-man roster. I don't expect him to be up unless he has a hot start to a season and gets some pretty big overall growth. Willie McIver is somebody to keep an eye on, only in the sense that if one of my catchers get hurt, he will probably be the guy I add to the 40-man roster and bring up. Franklin Barreto, of course, he'll be up and down. He's not on the 40-man right now, but I have like 5 open slots on the 40-man roster. And then, of course, Isan Diaz. If any of my bench bats get hurt, Diaz will probably be the first guy I call up. So I think that is it. That is all we have to cover. I am really excited for this season. I hope you guys are as well, and hopefully we can take home that title in just our 4th season. That would be amazing. So in the meantime, in between time, I hope you all have a good rest of your night, and I'm out.